All right, now we have Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
About maybe 10 or 12 years ago, a person I knew very well, had been very helpful to me in my campaigns when I was in the Senate, came to me and said she had met this very impressive young man. And he was going to start this group to go on college campuses and try to convince young Americans that ours is the greatest country in the history of the world and that Marxism was bad. And I remember thinking back then, I'm going to admit to you guys, I was a little skeptical. I said, college campuses, you're going to do that? Why don't you start somewhere easier, like, for example, communist Cuba, you know?
Did you catch that, AP?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But my skepticism was proven wrong. In place after place over the last 12, 14, 16 years, we've seen this renaissance. Understand where we were at that time in our history. Understand where we are still today in many places, where young Americans are actively told that everything that they were taught, that all the foundations that made our society and our civilization so grand, they were all wrong, they were all evil, that marriage is oppressive, that children are a burden, that America is a source of evil, not of good in the world. And here was this voice that inspired a movement in which young Americans were told that is not true. The highest calling we are called to is to be in a successful marriage and to raise productive children. And a movement that taught them that ours was not a great country, but the greatest, most exceptional nation that has ever existed in the history of all of mankind. And that it's worth fighting for, it's worth defending, it's worth preserving, and it's worth passing on to the next generation.
Wait a minute. Has this guy not seen Tucker's video glorifying Russia and talking about all their breads and shopping carts?
He probably missed it.
He probably missed it. Hey, Marco. I mean, you got to go check out Tucker's stuff, man, if you think this is the greatest country.
This was the mission and the work of Charlie Kirk. And a couple things that stand out about him. He led this movement, but he did so with incredible knowledge. It's unbelievable how much he knew. He came to me very recently. He said some quote. I said, who said that? He said, Marcus Aurelius. I said, what district does he represent? I kind of knew who it was, but he said back, no, it's a Roman, philosopher king or emperor. His incredible knowledge. Let me tell you that one of the last messages I had with him was just a few days before his passing, where he wrote me from overseas, I'm in South Korea, I have many concerns I want to share with you when I get back. He was constantly expanding his horizons, but he just didn't have knowledge. He had wisdom, an uncanny amount of wisdom for a man as young as he was. Wisdom that sometimes it takes a lifetime to accumulate. He had it in just 31 years.
I have to say, so when I first met with Charlie Kirk, I was actually quite surprised, quite amazed by some of the things that he appeared to know, that I was a little bit surprised by, were some basic things that I think most people would not know, some more complicated things. But he invited me for a conversation about Islam and about me and Islam, and I was surprised by how much he knows about Islam, how much he knows about Muhammad, how much he knows about the Quran, how much he knows about the Hadith, how much he knows about different Islamic things. But he sits down with me and just and asks me, and I basically serve the role there of confirming the things that he already knows about Islam. But then he also, despite saying I don't know anything about Orthodox Christianity, then briefly asked me about Eastern Orthodox Christianity, and then presented his knowledge of it by breaking down one of the most fundamental things about Eastern Orthodox Christianity, which is the theology of talking about what God is not rather than what God is. And I was very surprised by how he had grasped that. So, the guy was just, I don't know, he was full of knowledge about about random things, about the essence of different ideas and beliefs. Very, very incredible guy. I don't know.
Yeah, and I would say to everyone out there who wants to do anything sort of in that ballpark, meaning you may not be the main guy who's going around with a huge crowd of thousands of people around him on a college campus and so on, but you could be a person who has discussions with young people and so on. You have a huge stockpile of Charlie's interactions with young people on college campuses. So you can watch a lot of those videos, see what young people are asking and talking about and what objections they're raising on college campuses, and seeing how Charlie responded. And some of it you'll agree with, some of it you might think, I don't actually agree with what he said there or something. But you have a huge source of information there if you want to do anything that's sort of in that ballpark. And yes. I'm not even sure you're going to get another Charlie Kirk, like one guy who can do all that. You might need to Frankenstein him together with like a bunch of people doing something similar, something like that. But if you think, oh man, these young people today, I'm not sure. I don't know what they're going to be talking about or what they're going to bring up. So I don't actually want to have these discussions and so on. You can actually go through and check out what people are saying and how Charlie Kirk responded and so on. And then it'll give you an idea. They'll give you an idea of how to do something.
Beast.
He was also bold.
Mm-hmm.
It is so easy. And listen, I've been guilty of it. I think many of us have been guilty of this. You hide behind the walls and you surround yourself with people that agree with you. We do it as a society all the time. Increasingly, people are moving into neighborhoods with other people that agree with them politically and isolate themselves from people that do not agree with them. But Charlie Kirk was bold. He actively sought out to engage peacefully, respectfully, those who he disagreed with. As recently as 2 days ago, we learned of one of the hosts on CNN who said that one of the messages he had gotten just a few days before Charlie's passing was from him, inviting him to dialogue. And he did this on campuses, he did this on podcasts, he did this on radio shows, he did this on television shows. Time and again, he sought to engage those he disagreed with because he understood that we were not created to isolate ourselves from one another, but to engage. The irony in all this is that what our nation needs, one of the many things it needs, is the ability to discuss our differences openly, honestly, peacefully, respectfully. And Charlie Kirk did that more than anyone alive in America today is doing.
Yes.
And Charlie Kirk was impactful. Impactful because of all the things I've said, but look around this place. There's 100-something thousand people here. The President of the United States is here. His entire cabinet is here. Television outlets and media outlets from all over the world are covering this. Mm-hmm. I just came from overseas. In every country I stopped, they gave us their condolences for his passing. Impactful. In just 31 years of life, he made a difference. He mattered, and he will matter now more than he ever has before.
I love this guy, man.
And let me close with this. How do you remember? This is a memorial service. It's to honor him. How do you best remember it? I'll take the liberty of saying what I think we can best do. Look, I think he had a tremendous impact on young Americans in general. I think he had a very special and direct impact on young men in this country. That's one of the greatest developments I've seen. It's been very positive. I think we remember him for that. I think we remember him for constantly saying, you want to live a productive life, get married, start a family, love your country. These are powerful messages. Mm-hmm. But I hope many who are watching, I imagine there are people watching here tonight that didn't know much about Charlie Kirk until 11 days ago. Maybe they were disengaged from politics. Maybe they were partially engaged.
Just so everyone knows, that was me. I'd watched AP's little discussion with him, and I'd seen one or two videos of him on college campuses. I saw one where one was about the founding fathers and stuff like that. And I may have seen one or two more and just didn't remember and stuff like that. But I was not really familiar with him until all of this.
I hope one of the things they take from this is that the movement Charlie Kirk led and started and gave fuel to was about politics, but not only about politics. It was deeper, it was broader. And I would say that, taking the liberty, but I'm confident he would agree, one of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe, an all-powerful God, who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day he rose unlike any mortal man. And to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return, and he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
Do you know what I mean? Do you see what I mean? Do you see why I think that this was an extremely powerful speech?
It's pretty based. It's pretty based.
It's incredible, because I didn't, you are there and you expect the, Secretary of State, these politicians, to go up there and give speeches and, give some speeches the way politicians give speeches and be diplomatic and talk about, whatever politicians talk about. But then he goes there. He talks in such a wonderfully impactful, amazing way about Charlie Kirk. And then he concludes with the message of the gospel without limiting it in any way, without keeping it generic, being very specific about it in such a powerful way. I don't know. I was there, and especially there when he mentioned, and he rose on the third day. I think everybody felt that when everybody standing there, everybody in that stadium felt that. I started feeling shivers, and people started getting up and applauding, and I don't know. From a politician, from the government, from the Secretary of State.
Yeah, that's what's crazy,
Something
man.
like this.
Now, again, I haven't watched Trump's speech, but I've heard a lot of praise from you and from others about Marco's speech, J.D. Vance's speech, and so on. And so it is kind of amazing that you have like almost everyone in some tremendous place of power right now. It seems like everything like completely flipped from just a few years ago. It's like completely, it's just a complete reversal and so on. And it's like Charlie dies, and now it's, hey, you know what? We'll tell you exactly what we believe right now. Because this is not a time to be timid about what we believe. You guys just openly attacked. You guys just openly declared war on what we believe. So you know what? We're going to go ahead and tell you what we think.
That's also what J.D. Vance pointed out. Actually, he directly said it. He said in his speech, as far as I remember, I have generally been reluctant to speak in public about my faith, but over this last week, since the death of Charlie, I have spoken more about my faith than ever before, he said. That's what J.D. Vance said. And he was there like speaking about it very, very clearly and beautifully as well. So there is a great shift, including directly from the president to the vice president, the Secretary of State, from the government, people themselves. So I don't know. This is why people kept calling it a revival, and so many people have said, I went to church for the first time. I opened the Bible for the first time. I said a prayer for the first time. Yeah.
And what's interesting is some of the people saying that are like people I was already familiar with, right? It's not like some random person that no one's ever heard of. Although those are awesome too, but it's like people I've been seeing on X for years and so on. All of a sudden, people who've never shown the slightest interest in Christianity, all of a sudden saying, you know what? Hey, there's something here. This is something I want to look into now. So that's crazy.
I also want to point out one thing, which is so people like to do this thing, especially online, this whole infighting and all that, or finger pointing at each other among Christian groups and all that. There's something that I really loved about Charlie, which is that he didn't do that at all. He when he invited me, he asked me about Eastern Orthodoxy. When he invited others, he asked me about Catholicism. He spoke very beautifully of it. When he spoke to me, I posted the clip of it. He spoke about how beautiful Eastern Orthodoxy is, but also pointed out at the same time that he's an evangelical. He said, "Yeah, I'm evangelical, but Eastern Orthodoxy is beautiful. This is beautiful. That is beautiful." And here
Why
on
would he say
stage,
that? Why would he say that right before he was about to convert to Catholicism?
and here we just watched Marco Rubio, who is Catholic. So he gave this very powerful speech about Jesus. He's a Catholic giving that in front of a
So is Vance,
vastly
right?
yeah Vance too, in front of a vastly Protestant audience, and this togetherness, this goodness, this beauty, this is what Charlie Kirk did, and I wish things were more. I mean, I don't wish. I hope that this can be more prevalent.